Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more. The village fete and carnival were just around the corner, a highly anticipated event for everyone at Milsom Primary School. The girls and boys were excited about dressing up in the vibrant costumes hired for the occasion. Each had chosen their character, and the costumes were ready. However, there was one hiccup: Ryan Carter, the 12-year-old school bully. Known for spoiling others' fun, he showed no interest in participating despite encouragement from his mother and teachers. They resigned themselves, hoping he'd stay out of the way and not ruin things. As the fete day approached, Ryan strutted around the school playground, asserting himself by pushing smaller kids aside. Watching him, Megan Martin remarked, "I wish there was a way to knock him down a peg. Just once, I'd love to see him embarrassed." "Totally," David Matthews chimed in. "If only we could humiliate him so everyone would laugh. That might deflate his ego." "Yeah," sighed Emma McPherson. "That would be something." "Why don't we do something during the fete?" suggested Luke Knight. "Something embarrassing. It would be payback for all the little kids he bullies." "That's a brilliant idea," Megan agreed eagerly. "But what? Any thoughts?" After a moment of silence, Emma grinned mischievously. "I've got it. How about this?" She outlined her plan, causing the others to burst into laughter. "You boys will need to help," she said, still grinning. "And we'll need the right costume for him. Can we get an extra one in time?" "I think so," giggled Megan. "My mum handled the costume order, and she can probably arrange an extra. Especially if I explain why." "Perfect," Emma nodded. "Looks like Ryan Carter will be part of the procession, whether he likes it or not. It's going to be priceless." They spent the next few minutes refining their plan and left feeling quite pleased with themselves. The costumes arrived a few days later, stored in the pavilion. Megan and Emma eagerly located Ryan's costume, and when they unpacked it, they couldn't help but laugh. "He's going to rock this," Megan chuckled. "Let's meet with the boys again and make sure everyone's on board." "Sounds good," Emma nodded. "We need everything to go smoothly. Can you make sure he comes into the changing room when we're ready?" "Oh, absolutely," Megan grinned. "I've got the perfect lure. You know Ryan's weakness is computer games, especially that new one Luke just got. He's dying to get his hands on it. Once everyone's changed and most have headed outside, we'll tell Ryan that Luke has his new Game Boy but doesn't want to risk bringing it on the float. I'll let Ryan know Luke wants him to look after it for the afternoon. That should bring him running. When he shows up, we'll spring the trap." "That's brilliant," Emma smiled. "And are we sure we have enough boys to handle him?" "Definitely," Megan smirked. 6 of them. He's got plenty of enemies. He won't stand a chance." "Perfect," Emma grinned. "Then all we do now is wait." She chuckled with anticipation as they tried on their costumes. Emma dressed as Wonder Woman, while Megan opted for a more traditional Joan of Arc, pleased that their outfits were practical for dealing with Ryan, without long, flowing dresses to hinder them. Everything was set. The day of the fete dawned beautifully, the sun shining brightly in a clear blue sky. The procession was set to start from the village sports ground at noon, but eager children had gathered in the pavilion, transformed into a makeshift changing room, by 10 o'clock. Younger boys were already play-fighting with mock swords on the grass outside, while little girls strolled about with a haughty air, trying to appear as disdainful as possible. By 11 o'clock, everyone was ready, except those involved in Emma's scheme, who remained in the sports pavilion. After ensuring all was prepared, Megan announced, "All right then, let's do it." "Where's Ryan?" "With his mum," Emma grinned. "She's in on the plan and finds it hilarious. She insisted he come along, even if he doesn't want to be in the procession. She's expecting you. You better go fetch him." "Right," Megan grinned back. "Here we go." She exited the pavilion, and through the open door, the others watched as she approached Ryan and spoke to him. There was a moment's pause, then as Megan returned with Ryan in tow, Emma remarked. Perfect, he took the bait. All right, boys, Luke instructed. You know the drill. Danny, close the door once we've grabbed him. We don't want anyone seeing what we're up to, just the aftermath. Everyone, get in position as planned and be ready to grab him the moment he steps inside. With roles clear, Emma giggled nervously as she watched Ryan unsuspectingly walk into their trap. Megan allowed Ryan to enter the pavilion first. The moment he was fully inside, strong hands seized him. The boys swiftly subdued him and laid him on a padded exercise mat, while Danny slammed the door shut to conceal them from view. Ryan writhed and struggled fruitlessly for a few moments, but a couple of painful arm locks brought him under control. What the heck are you doing? Let me go. Now, he demanded. Oh, don't worry, Emma grinned triumphantly, arms folded. You'll be heading outside again soon, but under different circumstances than when you came in. Laughter rippled through the room, and Ryan began to look uneasy. He realized he'd been lured into the pavilion for a reason and was anxious to know what it was. What are you going to do to me? He asked nervously, his bravado fading. It was well known that bullies are often cowards, and Ryan was no exception. Do to you? Emma grinned. Oh, nothing much. We've simply decided you're going to join the procession with us. Ryan sighed with relief. Is that all? He scoffed. Well, if I'd known you felt so strongly about it, I might have considered it. He added smugly, but I don't have a costume, so I can't join your silly procession, can I? Oh, but you do have a costume, Megan chuckled. We rented one just for you, a lovely one. Would you like to see it? She grinned broadly. By now, Ryan understood from the firm grip of the boys holding him down that he had no choice in the matter. With as much disdain as he could muster, he said, if you insist. What is it? Some ridiculous character like Robin Hood, I suppose. Funny you should mention that, Megan giggled, crossing to a row of hooks where the children had hung their clothes for safekeeping. Because your costume does indeed have a hood. At the end of the row hung a single colorful costume on its hanger. With a mischievous grin, Megan took it down, returned to where Ryan lay, and held it up for him to see. Yes, she chuckled, you're going to be Little Red Riding Hood. Ryan's dismay was evident as he stared at the costume as if it were a poisonous snake. Sure enough, there was a sweet peasant-style red dress with a white blouse. The dress featured traditional crossed laces on the bodice, while the blouse had short puffed sleeves and a Peter Pan collar. Most conspicuous was the bright red hooded cape draped over the dress on the hanger. It was unmistakably a Little Red Riding Hood costume, and it fit Ryan perfectly. His face contorted with horror as he burst into a futile struggle against the boy's tight grip. No, he shouted. No. You can't do this. I'm not a little girl. The girls giggled, and the boys roared with laughter at Ryan's reaction, relishing the opportunity to give him the treatment he so richly deserved. Well, you soon will be, Emma chuckled. My goodness, you're going to look adorable up on the float where everyone can see you. But first, let's get you into your costume, she continued briskly. Okay boys, help him out of his clothes, will you? Despite Ryan's frantic struggles, the boys had no trouble removing his clothes. Soon, he sat upright on the exercise mat, stripped down and firmly held under their control. Emma picked up a pair of maroon schoolgirl knickers and said, these will go perfectly with the outfit. Hold his legs, boys, while I slip them on. The boys brought his legs together and lifted him slightly off the ground as Emma pulled the knickers over his ankles and up his legs. Piece of cake, she grinned. Just like dressing my little sister when she was in diapers. Laughter rippled through the room at that thought. Once the knickers were on, she picked up the blouse, held it up, and said, all right, let's get him into his blouse. It opened at the back, and the boys maneuvered Ryan's arms into the sleeves. Emma quickly fastened the buttons down the back and secured a hook and eye at the back of the neck. So far, so good, she smiled. Now for the dress. A row of laces ran up the back, which she unfastened, opening up the dress. All right boys, she instructed, hold him in a kneeling position while I get this on him. The boys positioned Ryan as requested, holding the dress open above him. Willing hands guided his head and arms into the garment, and Emma pulled it down around him. "Perfect," she said. "Now, stand him up so I can fasten the back. He won't be slipping out of this dress anytime soon." The boys helped Ryan to his feet, and Emma began tightening the long laces up the back. As she secured them, Ryan felt the dress cinching around him, realizing there was no way to remove it without untying the laces. She worked her way up the back until she reached the top of the bodice between Ryan's shoulder blades. Once she had closed the dress, she tied off the laces in a tight knot, securing them with a double bow. "Excellent," Emma grinned. "It fits perfectly. Now for shoes and socks. Boys, could you sit him down on that chair?" Ryan was deposited unceremoniously onto a chair, his arms held down over the back by the boys. Emma slipped a pair of white cotton ankle socks onto his feet, neatly folding down the tops. Then, she took a pair of black Mary Jane-style shoes, slid them onto his feet, and buckled them securely at the sides. "There we go," Emma said, straightening up. "Almost ready, but there's one more thing. I know he can't untie those laces to get out of the dress, but he might try something else. How can we make sure he can't remove any part of his costume or undo anything?" There was a brief pause before Luke spoke up. "That's simple. Just hold him steady for a moment." He walked over to a locker at the end of the room and searched through some football gear and sportswear. Finding a football boot, he removed one of its long laces. "Here we go," he said with a grin. "This will take care of his hands. Put his hands behind his back and cross his thumbs over." The boys obliged, pressing Ryan's thumbs together while Luke skillfully tied them tightly, leaving two ends of the lace hanging from the knot. Then, positioning Ryan's bound thumbs close to the laces running down the back of the dress, Luke threaded them through the dress's laces near the bottom, just above his waist. After securing Ryan's thumbs, Luke took the trailing ends of the football lace, threading them up Ryan's back and tying them to the dress's laces, well out of Ryan's reach. Ryan was now completely immobilized, with no way to remove or tamper with his embarrassing outfit. "Oh, that's brilliant," Emma grinned. "He won't be getting out of that anytime soon." "And," chuckled Megan, picking up the red hooded cloak, "with this cloak covering his hands, no one will even notice he's tied up. People might think he actually wants to be Little Red Riding Hood." Laughter erupted at her comment, and with a broad grin, Megan draped the cloak over Ryan's shoulders. She pulled it together at his neck and secured it with a neat double bow that wouldn't slip. "There," she chuckled, "this should make him look absolutely charming." She pulled the hood of the cloak over Ryan's head, fastening the ties under his chin with a secure double bow to prevent him from shaking the hood off. Stepping back, she admired her work. Emma burst into laughter. "Oh, that's absolutely delightful. Doesn't he look adorable? My goodness, he could pass for a little girl better than most little girls." "Definitely," giggled Megan. "All right, let him go, guys. Let's see if he can manage to take any of his costume off." The boys cautiously released Ryan, who immediately began to twist and turn in a frantic effort to remove the humiliating pointed pixie hood framing his face. He spun around and shook his head, but it was futile. The securely tied bow under his chin ensured the hood stayed firmly in place. After a minute or so of struggling, he resigned himself to peeking out from under the Red Riding Hood like a demure little girl. "Well, there we go," Emma grinned. "I think Little Red Riding Hood is ready to join the procession now. Shall we take her out to the float? They should be loading up by now." "Good idea," said Megan. "Boys, bring him along. We need to get him positioned on the float, but first, let's show him off to his mum." Two of the boys grasped Ryan's arms firmly, and the group exited the pavilion, crossing the grass towards where Ryan's mother conversed with a friend. Upon seeing Ryan, both women erupted into laughter, clearly relishing Ryan's comeuppance for his past antisocial behavior. They embraced the playful spirit of the moment, and Ryan's mother grinned, remarking, "Well, goodness me, what a sweet little girl. Isn't she just darling? And that costume suits her perfectly," chuckled her friend. Little Red Riding Hood was definitely a great choice. She looks adorable peeking out from under that hood, doesn't she? Ryan blushed deeply, and his mother added, "Well, you children better get him onto your float. They'll be starting off soon." "All right then," Megan said, rallying the group. The two ladies waved to Ryan as if he were truly a little girl, and he was escorted towards the exit of the sports ground and onto a small roadway where trucks and floats were parked in readiness for the procession. Portable step ladders were set up beside them. Upon reaching their designated float, the boys and girls guided the reluctant Ryan up the steps and onto the float. They positioned him near the front, behind the driver's cabin. With Megan holding up Ryan's cloak, Luke secured his wrists with rope to a fixture, leaving him no choice but to stand prominently on the float dressed as Little Red Riding Hood, fully visible to everyone. Draped in the cloak, no one would suspect Ryan was bound, they would assume he willingly participated in the carnival procession as Little Red Riding Hood. Ryan felt almost overwhelmed with humiliation. Emma adjusted the cloak, ensuring the front was slightly open to display the sweet little dress Ryan wore underneath. She chuckled, saying, "There we have it, Little Red Riding Hood, the star attraction on this float. Now, let's make sure everyone knows it." Scanning the assembly area around them, Emma suddenly giggled, "And I think I've spotted the perfect person for that." She pointed towards the photographer from the Fordham Gazette. "I bet he'd be interested in how we handle bullies, especially with all the anti-bullying initiatives at school right now. I'll go have a word with him." Ryan struggled uselessly against the ropes, frustrated as he watched Emma approach the photographer and explain his predicament. The photographer glanced over at him, chuckled several times, then began walking towards the float with Emma. Anticipating what was to come, Ryan groaned in humiliation as the photographer climbed onto the float, grinning broadly as he looked at Ryan. Well, he chuckled, "if it isn't Little Red Riding Hood. Quite a fitting way to handle a bully, I must say. Bullied the little girls, and now has become one himself. This will make a great piece for the Gazette. We're fully behind the latest efforts to combat school bullying, and this will serve as a strong message to any others like him. Just a moment, let me take some shots." Ryan was powerless to stop him as the photographer adjusted his camera settings and snapped several photos, some with Emma, Megan, and the others included. Blushing deeply under his red pixie hood, Ryan wished he could disappear as he imagined facing everyone at school the next day, knowing they had all seen evidence of his humiliation. "Thank you, girls," the photographer said after finishing. "That's exactly the kind of exposure we need to deter school bullies. And as for you, mate," he said, turning to Ryan with a grin, "I don't envy your day dressed like that, but it's what you deserve. Have fun, and keep an eye out for the next Gazette edition. You're going to be quite the local celebrity." With a final chuckle, he stepped down from the float and walked away. Emma glanced at Ryan, grinning. "Well, that was unexpected. Can't wait to see how those photos turn out in the paper." Ryan, however, would have preferred to wait indefinitely. A few moments later, the procession organizers instructed the boys and girls to take their places on their respective floats. Soon, the procession began moving, leaving the sports ground and proceeding down the main village street. To Ryan's mortification, the girls seized every chance to draw attention to him, causing him to blush deeply as several of his schoolmates in the crowd recognized him. They laughed loudly upon realizing who the sweet little girl in the Red Riding Hood costume truly was, and Ryan knew he would never live this down. The procession wound through the village for about half an hour before reaching a recreation ground where the carnival, complete with fairground rides and amusements, was in full swing. Once the floats came to a stop, the boys and girls climbed down onto the ground. Luke untied Ryan from the float but left his thumbs securely tied to the back of his dress. Emma and Megan firmly grasped Ryan's arms as they stepped off the float. One of the other girls then asked, "So, what should we do with him now?" "You'll see," grinned Emma. "Come on, we've got another little surprise for Little Red Riding Hood." Surrounded by several of their friends, Emma and Megan began marching Ryan purposefully through the fairground. He had a sinking feeling they had something planned for him. And they certainly did. Among a row of stalls, there was a gap between two of them housing a set of old-fashioned wooden stocks. Ryan immediately dreaded who they were intended for and tried to halt, but with the eager help of their friends, Emma and Megan steered him towards the stocks. Megan lifted the upper part of the board that trapped the feet. Despite Ryan's struggles against their strong hold, they seated him and forced his ankles into the slots. With a swift motion, Megan secured the board, and Emma produced a padlock. She snapped it shut, securing the stocks around Ryan's ankles. They stood back, laughing hysterically as Ryan squirmed helplessly in plain view, dressed in his sweet little girl costume. But Emma and Megan weren't done yet. Megan pondered for a moment, then remarked, "He does look cute, but with that hood on, it's not entirely obvious he's a boy, is it?" "Good point," agreed Emma. "So what do you propose?" After a brief pause, Megan grinned mischievously. "I've got just the thing. Girly, but it'll leave no doubt he's a boy." "What's that?" asked Emma. "These," chuckled Megan, producing a hairbrush, 2 lengths of white satin ribbons, elastic bands, and 2 small white plastic bow-shaped hair slides from her bag. "You're brilliant, Hilly," giggled Emma. "Those will do the trick. And with his thumbs tied like that, he won't stand a chance of getting them out of his hair." "Exactly," grinned Megan. "Let's take off the cloak so everyone can see that adorable dress he's wearing. Someone hold his head steady while I put these ribbons in his hair." Ryan felt utterly defeated, his ankles locked in the stocks and his thumbs securely bound to the laces of his dress. There was nothing he could do to resist. Emma unfastened the hood of the cloak, pushed it back from Ryan's head, and removed it completely, revealing the colorful dress in full sunlight. One of the girls positioned herself behind Ryan, wrapping her arm around his chin and securing his head firmly. Megan took charge, styling his hair as though he were a little girl. She began by combing through his hair, parting it down the middle and gathering it into 2 bunches, securing each with elastic bands. Ryan squirmed and groaned with humiliation as Megan tied one ribbon tightly around the base of each bunch in neat bows. Ensuring symmetry, she then clipped the white plastic hair slides next to the ribbons, clicking them shut. "There we are," Megan smiled, brushing the front of Ryan's hair into a small fringe. "That's almost exactly how I wore mine as a little girl." "Well, close enough, anyway. All right, you can let him go now." The girl released Ryan's neck, and they all stepped back, bursting into laughter as Ryan struggled and squirmed within the confines of the stocks. He desperately tried to shake loose the embarrassing ribbons in his hair, but Megan had tied them too securely. His attempts to use his hands were futile, restrained as they were by the football lace binding his thumbs to his back. Completely at their mercy, Ryan could only endure the taunts and mockery from the girls, his face burning with embarrassment as they teased him about being such a pretty little girl. Regret for his bullying ways filled him completely. Passers-by soon joined in the teasing, laughing at his predicament without mercy. While Megan and Emma kept watch over Ryan, the others ventured off to enjoy the fair's attractions. Ryan remained in the stocks for the next 3 hours, unable to do anything but wait. Eventually, Emma decided it was time to release him. She unlocked the padlock and raised the upper board of the stocks, freeing Ryan's ankles. Ryan gratefully placed his feet on the ground, and Megan and Emma helped him to stand. However, they left his hands bound behind his back. Megan replaced the cloak around Ryan's shoulders and secured the hood tightly over his head, ensuring it couldn't be shaken loose. "There we are, back to being sweet little Red Riding Hood," Megan grinned. "Shall we go?" They walked Ryan through the crowd, enduring continued teasing and laughter from onlookers. The girls escorted Ryan back through the village, giving everyone one last opportunity to laugh at him before they reached the changing room at the pavilion. There, they untied him and assisted him in removing his humiliating costume. Ryan sat down, and as Megan untied the ribbons from his hair, Emma addressed him seriously. "Well, Ryan, maybe this will teach you not to bully others in the future. Have you learned your lesson?" "I certainly have," Ryan replied firmly. "I've never felt so embarrassed in my life." "Good," Megan grinned. "That was the whole point. It seems to have worked so well as a punishment that we might just keep it in mind for the future. That's a great idea, Emma giggled. Actually, Ryan, I have this absolutely adorable little party dress that would suit you perfectly. So, be warned. If we catch you bullying again, we might just dress you up and take you shopping in Fordham with us, making sure everyone gets a good laugh at your expense. Got it? She grinned mischievously. Having finished changing back into his own clothes, Ryan nodded earnestly. Got it. I won't risk going through today's humiliation again. I'll behave. In that case, mission accomplished, Emma smiled. You can go now. See you at school on Monday. Ryan hurriedly left the pavilion and headed home, eager to leave the day behind him. Meanwhile, the girls, satisfied with the day's events, hung up the Little Red Riding Hood costume and stepped out into the warm late afternoon sun. It had been a perfect day for them.